Hi, my name is K Moon, and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video update about the new moon in Taurus solar eclipse for the twin flame divine counterpart collective. If that is a way that you identify here on Earth. And this particular solar eclipse new moon took place on April 30th, 2022, 4:27 p.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. Please check a time zone converter for your local time. I just want to take a pause and say a huge, huge thank you. I know so many of you have emailed, you've been waiting for this, and I appreciate deeply your patience. This particular eclipse hit some very sensitive points in my own chart. And so I just needed to take some time to put my own oxygen mask on first before standing in service to others. And I certainly know that all of you who recognize yourself as a light worker in service can understand what that might mean. So, again, thanks for your patience. This particular new moon is the annual Divine Feminine's new moon. And the Divine Feminine and Divine Masculine's new moon are new moons that I've dubbed as such because they are the first new moon in a feminine and masculine sign, respectively, for the astrological new year. The astrological new year begins with the sign of Aries. It is the first sign of the zodiac. It is a masculine gendered sign. And the new moon in Taurus, being the second sign of the zodiac, is a feminine gendered sign. And so these two particular new moon periods are always significant and very important because they can hold an energy that anchors the entirety of the year for our divine masculine and divine feminine energies. And I would say between the two, this one is probably more significant for most people on this channel who watch this channel, who identify as exploring the polarity of divine feminine energy, regardless of the body you're in or transitioning to. We all have both energies, masculine and feminine. And as such, there will be times in each person's journey where you're exploring the masculine polarity as divine masculine, or exploring the feminine polarity as divine feminine. And there will be times where what I share for both energies, you will see it very clearly as playing out in your life both ways, as opposed to just one or just the other. So trust your journey. If one resonates more than the other, that's fine. If they both resonate, that's also fine. There's no need to force yourself into a box or dictate other people's boxes. Let's get into the energy of this divine feminine's new moon solar eclipse. Very exciting that it is also happening at a solar eclipse because there is a rebirth, a new beginning. Solar eclipses portend openings of new chapters for all of us. And this particular solar eclipse is no different, and certainly very potent for each of the divine counterparts, but especially the divine feminine, since it is happening in the sign of Taurus, which, if we are to include Juno, the original counterpart to Jupiter, astrologically speaking, she is technically his wife in the mythology. If we include her in the pantheon of planetary prominence, then she is most closely affiliated as a triple goddess with the identity of Taurus as well as Libra. And because this is a Taurus new moon solar eclipse, this is a new beginning for divine feminine energies that has a sense of consequence, a sense of profundity, a sense of huge potential, in our divine feminine energy fields. And so I talk about the context in which the significant transformation, growth, and change of this new moon in Taurus is happening in the Lightworker energy update that pertains to all beings and bodies of light here on Earth. However, if in fact, and I recommend that you have a listen to that so you can understand it fully. In this new moon in Taurus video update, I'm just going to get into the energies that I'm seeing between people who are in romantic partnerships that they would call divine counterpartships. So let's go ahead and let's get into this. Let's have a look at what's happening. For the divine feminine, I always like to start with the lady first. The divine feminine energy is hanging out here at the 3rd degree of Pisces. And she's been in Pisces for a little while now, maybe a few weeks, but the journey into Pisces is a significant one because she's now going to hang out in Pisces for the remainder of 2022. And because she's going to be here for the remainder of 22, the energies that have been ushered in the last 3 weeks, whatever you've been feeling, whatever you've been dealing with, whatever themes have come up, note that some aspect of these will be up for exploration until this time in 2023. So whatever it is, strap in, because these things are going to be things that we'll explore in our divine feminine energy fields for a full year up until we get to the next new moon cycle. Okay. Now I know because some of you have emailed me, I've spoken to you in private session in the past couple of weeks. You found this particular energy heavy. You found it daunting, emotionally overwhelming, little stultifying, if you will. I don't even know if I'm using that word correctly, but it appears in consciousness to share. So the reason for that is because of what Pisces can really represent. Pisces is our connection to the unseen world. It is the all thing that is no thing in particular. And in stepping into the cosmic soup, the potentiated state of Pisces energy, what we have going on is a connection to all that is here on Earth in the human light body, the human form body, the human desire body, the human pain body, all of it. And there is, you could say, on Earth at this time, there is a significant amount of keening amongst her peoples. Separation and division, divisive consciousness it's at a high in a way that it hasn't been in a long time. And there is a significant amount of struggle amongst Earth's peoples when it comes to resource and direction and having and not having and purpose and passion and what it is we're all moving toward after such a significant point of transformation as 2020 and 2021 ushered in with the pandemic. All of that to say, this moment of change, this moment of transformation, depending upon your orientation to change, can be deeply unsettling. And if you identify as a light worker in, again, any kind of body, doesn't matter how from a gender perspective you identify, but if you identify as a light worker, you're going to find that stepping into this cosmic soup or pool of human energy in an amplified way at this time may be quite overwhelming. And this is going to be especially true if you're an individual who has a lot of water in their chart, significant Cancer placements, significant Scorpio placements, significant Pisces placements. There could be a sensation with this of emotional flooding emotional overwhelm. And this is simultaneously true as well of our divine masculine energy, who's been in Pisces since since January of this year. This energy of feeling maybe a little bit overwhelmed. Pisces rules sleep and depression, mental illness, dealing with perhaps certain addictions coming up, being bogged down or feeling heavy. All of this are thematics that we'll be dealing with Juno in Pisces and Jupiter in Pisces now for the month of May. As we move into the end of May, beginning of June, thank God, at least one of the counterpart energies will get out of Pisces and move into Aries, the sign of rebirth and new beginnings and spring. And so it'll lighten the etheric load that we're all carrying. If you have found this energy overwhelmingly emotional, Jupiter getting into Aries will lighten it quite a bit. But Juno, the divine feminine, she's here for the duration. She's here for the year. And so in working with this energy, especially because of what the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle represents, moving away from things that undermine us, bring us death, moving toward things that bring us life, abundance, and fertility. How you deal with this energy, this Piscean energy, is going to make a significant difference in how you feel and how you heal. Because the divine feminine is in water sign Pisces, and she'll be making such terrific aspects to the south node here in Scorpio, there is a lot of endings and letting go. Pisces washes out to sea. Scorpio deals with death and completions. There is a lot of letting go that this particular new moon solar eclipse in Taurus is bringing to the surface for our divine feminine energies, and will be with us for the remainder of this year. She pops out into Aries early next year with the divine masculine in January. But until then, like I said, it's a good time to buckle up, get some support, drink some water, lighten your own load in the external world, because Pisces deals significantly with the internal world. And dealing with the internal world, what we're going to be finding and dealing with the collective subconscious is any remnants. And I'm speaking now specifically to those of you who are healers and light workers and really have noticed that you tend to stand in as a divine intercessor for collective healing, collective pain. These energies hit you first. Sometimes collective energies move through you as a part of collective healing. So you're feeling things that have nothing to do with you, but certainly are personal to you and the way they're moving through. If this is who you are, you've noticed this in your journey. Not all of you are going to relate to what I'm about to say, and that's okay. But for those of you who can, the thing about this period of time is that we have a bit of divine choice around how subject we are to these energies and how we are processing these energies. And I say that specifically because of the way that this particular moment in the eclipse cycle, because eclipses work as a series, they don't just work one off. There's a series of them on an axis that move us in a particular direction. This moment in the series and this particular series is opening up a path where we get to stand in Taurus energy. Taurus is the fixed sign of perpetual spring, fertility, abundance, life, light. It is moving into a season of growth, We can stand in Taurus energy, which is frankly what divine feminine energy represents. She is most closely associated with the sign of Taurus. So we can anchor there if we choose with the North Node, the direction that we're all supposed to be growing toward. We can anchor there. The alternative is anchoring into Scorpio energy. And Scorpio is the exact opposite energy of Taurus. It is fall, it is completions, endings, transformation that requires a death. It is the resurrection cycle, but the resurrection cycle begins with endings. It deals with shadow, secrets, that which is hidden in the cocoon. And all of our fears and all of our challenges in our relationship to our own or others' power here on earth, and the ways we struggle with that, against that, and in that. So you can anchor into Scorpio energy. You certainly have that choice. Or you can anchor into Taurus energy. You have that choice as well. Some of you over the course of this cycle will be traversing back and forth. Others of you will more firmly anchor in one versus the other, depending upon what you're here to do from a leadership perspective and what you're here to learn from a soul growth perspective. But ultimately, there's a level of free will with this in terms of, do you stand in light or do you stand in shadow? But you cannot stand in both at the same time. It is not possible. Not during this particular eclipse cycle. You will need to make a choice. Are you going to do shadow work? Or are you going to do light work? Are you going to live in the light? Or are you going to live in the shadow? Now, many of you, that's going to mean so many different things. Some of us have a lot of shadow to clean up, and this is going to be a very scorpionic cycle for us. Others of us have done enough of it. At this point, standing in shadow is happening just because it's habit, not because it's what we want or what we desire. And so we have the option to move out of that and to start to explore the forces of light, fertility, growth, abundance, surrender, reception, and receiving. These feminine qualities affiliated with Taurus, we have the opportunity to explore that instead. Either way, it's important to know two things. One, trust what your life is presenting to you as material to work with. There are no accidents. We live in a benevolent universe. So when there is something to be dealt with, face it. Don't run. Don't hide. The second thing to understand is that you have choice and free will. You don't ever have to deal with your shadow if you don't want. But we're seeing on the world stage, among many of the world's dictators, what it looks like when you don't deal with your shadow, the impact it has on everyone around you. So it's a matter of having the wisdom and the discernment, truly, to understand, is there something for me to learn in my shadow here and transmute it to light? And simultaneously, is it time for me to stop looking in the dark and standing in the light? You get the opportunity to use your creatorship and your discernment to understand that for your journey. Because some have been looking in the shadow, swimming in the shadow. Some of you have been there for far too long. And it's time now. It's just time to move forward. And so I want to bring you into some moments in time prior to this particular eclipse that would have really facilitated the awareness of that choice point. So if we go back in time to April, that first week of April of this year, think back to roughly about 30 days prior to now. At that point, we had the divine feminine in a pretty direct square to the nodal axis. Now, just as a quick recap, the nodes constantly moving, but they talk about the lesson we need to learn yet and the lesson we have already learned and need to move on from, past tense. I'm always amused by those stories. I find them fascinating, of children who, in some way, shape, or form, were afraid from a subconscious place to graduate from elementary school to high school to college, because they had grown so comfortable with the interconnected web of people and places that were part of their lives up until that point. And so instead of graduating, they facilitate repeated instances of self-sabotage so that they are forced to repeat that grade level until they have come to terms with the necessity of moving on, moving forward. And so, right at the beginning of April, we have Juno squaring the nodes. Whenever we have a planet squaring the nodal axis, we have a choice point in terms of whether or not we are going to move forward, or whether or not we're going to say, hey, I didn't quite get that lesson. I'd love to repeat aspects of it, but in smaller chunks, a little bit slower. And at the beginning of April, when Juno was square the nodal axis, we had a moment in time that brought us to that choice point in the divine feminine energy fields. And again, remember, the choices are life, light force, fertility, femininity, surrender, receptivity, or shadow. That's the Scorpio energy here, needing to deal with certain hidden aspects of ourselves regarding power and fear, transformation, our capacity to resurrect ourselves through a death and ending. So that choice point came for the divine feminine at the beginning of April. And if you look back into your connection and what you were doing at the beginning of April, you may have been aware of a sense of crossroads in your connection, but not just then. Let's go back in time previously. That same crossroads showed up in our divine masculine energy field in the first week of January of 2022. Here's the divine masculine and that same position, squaring the nodal axis. Do I want to move forward? Do I want to repeat? Do I want to let go? Do I want to dig in? And so that choice point in the beginning of January and at the beginning of April for divine feminine and divine masculine energies was significant as this union window opens. So for those of you who were subscribers to the channel last year, you'll know that I talked a lot about this 2-year union window opening for twin souls, and that the opening of this window constituted a period of time in which the pull between the two counterparts would be at its loudest, and that there are like 5 types of union that can occur: union with self, soul group, source, union with mission, union with counterpart. And whether or not one or the other happens for you is just really contingent upon just what your syllabus is, what your schedule and agenda is for growth, right? So all of that to say, this choice point that opened up in January and opened up further in April for both divine counterparts is really facilitating for each person in the partnership. Okay, what path is going to be best for me and the growth and evolution of my soul and the service I'm here to do at this time? When we have an energy squaring the nodes in transit, it represents an opportunity for about like a timeline split. And we've got, I'll get into it. I want to walk you through where that solidifies, because we have a solidification of that coming in the end of June. And timeline splits are fine. Some people, in the monad and the soul group, they move in one direction together Others move in another direction together. There's nothing pejorative or particularly promising about it. It's just about, again, how you're here to lead, what you're here to learn, that kind of thing. And so this particular timeline split, one in January, the one in April, they're kind of precursors to the major timeline split in July that comes. But these precursors are really talking about, for in the opening of this union window, where do I want this connection to go? What am I prepared to be doing inside of my connection to source, soul group, counterpart, mission? What am I prepared to be doing at this time in order to facilitate the next step inside my union? And so I can't reiterate it enough. I've said it 3 to 4 times already. I'm going to say it a 4th or 5th time. Union is not always about getting into some sort of traditional romantic 3rd dimensional relationship with your counterpart. It is very important to have an expansive understanding of moving into unity consciousness and into union with source and moving into union with the true self that you are, the all that you are. And so, as much as the human soul desires, or the human ego really desires this kind of like, yes, let's move in together and play house, the soul has an understanding of that there's something much bigger at play happening through me that I need to surrender to. And that's really the name of the game. As Jupiter stepped into Pisces in the beginning of January, Pisces is the sign of surrender. We fast forward to the beginning of April. We have the divine feminine moving into Pisces at that time as well. Not the beginning of April, but moving into square to the nodes and now into Pisces. This is really an energy of like, okay, check, double check. What do we need to do in order to just be open to the way a union energy wants to flow through us? And this was these 2 steps, the first week of January, the first week of April, were precursors. And these 2 precursor steps were preceded by an initial step. And this was the Venus retrograde, November, December, and January. During that period of time, the Venus retrograde conjunct Pluto would have opened up at the very beginning of this union window. It opened up and illuminated exactly what it was going to take. What are the lessons here in this connection that are showing me what's my next step in union, broadly speaking, right? What do I need to let go of, sacrifice, put an end to? Pluto. What attachments do I need to detox from? Venus talking to Pluto. What do I value that I want to preserve? Venus. That Venus retrograde period with Pluto, November, December, January, and early February of this year, really opened up and put a highlighter, bold, italics, underline, exclamation points all around. Here's what you need to do for union to manifest in your life. Here's what you have to let go of. And so that lesson would have been clear by the time we got to February and March. Okay. And now that we've got this 3rd step in the process, Juno square the nodes, what we have in April, and now we're at this new moon solar eclipse in Taurus. This is appearing to me as a swing on a trapeze bar, where you, at one point, you've got to let go of the old bar in order to grasp on to the new one. And this new moon in Taurus is giving you a chance to grasp on to a new step, a new beginning, a new opening, a new something in the world of connection for divine feminine energies. New behaviors, new habits, new patterns, new thoughts, new ways of dealing with the connection, etc. All of it is about this new pathway that's opening up. Okay. Now, I'm going to speak to those of you who are already in some form of union with your counterpart, because I know you kind of break yourselves down into these groups, and then I'm going to deal with you, those of you who are not in some form of 3D union with your counterpart, those of you who are in some form of 3D union with your counterpart. This energy is ushering in an opportunity to let go of and forgive any and all things that may have happened in the connection prior to now that prevent the connection from deepening. This is an opportunity to surrender, to forgive, to open up, have compassion for your counterpart so that the connection, the relationship that you've built around the connection can move to its next deepest level. Be more life-giving to both people in the partnership. Okay. And so you may find at this time that there's rich emotion coming up and deep dialogue between you and your counterpart. For those of you who have counterparts that do not do communication and emotions simultaneously, because some people just aren't built like that, depending upon their moon and their Mercury placements, they don't do communication and emotions at the same time. They do them separately. If that's the case, not to worry. If this period of time could have a little bit of silence to it. And that little bit of silence is what's needed in space so that each person in the counterpartship can witness, birth, and be with themselves in the veil, their own feelings, their own emotions, before being able to bring them to you. So if there's a little space that's opened up, trust it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong here. And if there's a lot of communication that's really opened up, give yourself permission to just be a witness, compassionately allowing the other person to reveal who they are to you. That's the gift of this time period in the divine feminine energy fields and in the divine masculine energy fields, because they're both sitting in Pisces. Now, I want to talk to those of you who are in some format of separation. Depending upon how distant you and your counterpart are, what you may be experiencing during this time is something wholly other. And that has to do with whom the divine counterparts are speaking to astrologically. We've got Jupiter over here in a tight conjunction with Venus for about a week or two. We've got Juno coming out of her tight conjunction with Mars. Juno is the divine counterpart to Jupiter, but whom she's talking most closely to at this time is a soulmate energy. Jupiter is the divine counterpart, husband to Juno, but whom he's talking most closely to at this time is a soulmate energy. Venus and Mars represent the anima, if you will, like the human incarnate, soulmate type energy. And with both divine counterparts having such significant conversations, prolonged truly, with soulmate energies, there's a group of you at this juncture who may be experiencing the interjection or input of soulmate energies into your counterpartship. So you may find, whether you are in separation or married or whatever you want, whatever status of your counterpartship at this juncture, the connection is eternal, and simultaneously there may be the inclusion of others at this time. And I did notice this for those of you who found this period of time particularly heavy, moved into a lot of a cycle of purging. Part of what you're experiencing is your response to the fact that there's these other entities and energies inside of your counterpart ship at this time. You can feel your counterpart dealing with somebody else. You can feel what it's like, maybe your counterpart's feelings about you dealing with somebody else. And that purging could be coming through. You could be assisting them with their purging as you deal with somebody else. And so the reason why it's so felt, so palpable at this time is because both counterparts are sitting in Pisces. Pisces represents that cosmic soup, that collective subconscious. You cannot put salt on one side of a soup and then expect that the other side of the soup isn't going to become salty. It doesn't work like that. Liquid water, especially Piscean water in particular, is so hyper connected to every other molecule. You just cannot separate the energies. And so this particular period of time is very mergy for both counterparts. And some of I can imagine looking at this, some of what you all may be experiencing is just what it means to be so deeply connected to one another while deeply connecting to people who are not each other. And this is a necessary growth step in the world of unconditional love. And I can't overemphasize this enough, even though, let me give you the context for this before I talk about a direct interpretation. In the world that we've all chosen to incarnate into here on earth, the prescribed method of loving and expectations delivered by every billboard, ad, movie, book, magazine that we've ever been exposed to has this concept of there being the one. And that love is limited in the ways in which it can be expressed once you have met the one or experienced. And that until you find the one, you are unable to love anyone else. And furthermore, if you're the one in any way slights you, harms you, hurts you, undermines you, somehow, some way, that makes them not the one. And so this concept has truly limited our understanding of what love actually is. It's undermined and damaged it significantly. And waking up from the lie of love comes with a lot of heartbreak if you've been deeply invested in that story. Love begets more love. Love is not limited. In the same way that you can love both your mother and your father non-romantically, you can also love your counterpart and somebody else simultaneously. That's the truth of what love is. When you lean into it, it expands, it grows. It is not limited in its experience and expression. The only limitation is those which the human ego and mind put on it. And so this deconditioning is a really important part of the divine counterpartship journey and the twin flame journey. The letting go of what you've been told love is and the opening up to what love really is, that it comes with freedom. It comes without expectation. These are all concepts that once you have become an initiate in the ways of love, that you start to understand at a much deeper level. And this step, right as the union window opens, like we're right out of the gate, union window's opening, and boom, here's this deep interaction by transit with other counterparts or with soulmates, perhaps, if you will, if you like to label connections, in such a way that both people can feel it with each other. This is a next level mastery lesson in love. It's teaching us about being responsible with other people's emotions and with our own, and not being willy-nilly, because we are all connected. It teaches us about being accountable to our own heart and following the path, the true path of our heart, without needing anyone else to validate or justify it by being a certain way with us. It's teaching us the importance of allowing other people to, if we truly love them, have the path that's right for them, not the path prescribed by us. Trusting that they have their own guides, their own soul contracts, their own, destined appointments for learning and leadership here on planet Earth that we don't get to dictate. Love allows, it doesn't control. Mastery lessons in love. And that's what this new moon solar eclipse in Taurus is bringing forward for both divine counterparts, with a emphasis on hypersensitivity to one another and to the collective as we learn it. And that sensitivity is what's allowing us to really understand, oh, this is what love is. It means when you hurt, I hurt. Oh, because we're so connected. Got it. There isn't separation here between me and you. There is just we. And we is a singular life force energy that is not just inclusive of us, but inclusive of all. So again, speaking to those of you who are in some format of separation, or maybe you're in some other level of complication and operationalizing this connection in the third dimension, such as you're married to your twin, but one or both of you is seeing someone else on the side, or some other complication, and there's been dishonesty about that, right? What this particular new moon solar eclipse in Taurus in the union window is bringing forward is new lessons in love. And the question, what is love asking me to do here? Yeah. What's the most loving thing I can do? And with the North Node in Taurus here, this is my favorite part. Because we have come and are coming through in this moment in time in human history, we are coming through a period of time where the patriarchal message around love, because we've had a lot of men tell us the story of how to live life, dictate the rules. The masculine, the old masculine story of love is, what would you die for? But the feminine story and the new masculine story around love is, what are you willing to live for? What are you willing to let go of your bad habits for? To deal with your shadow for? What are you willing to become a more whole and integrated person for? What are you willing to stand in life for? That's the new definition of love here that we're all starting to embrace. And this new moon solar eclipse in Taurus is facilitating that awareness and that awakening for everyone, but especially as divine counterparts, leaders in love here on earth for others. This is the question we're wrestling with for ourselves, and now coming to stand in and rearrange our lives to be a reflection of, so that others can follow in our footsteps. All right. It's not for them to understand us. It's for us to show them the way. All right. So this, in summary, really represents a crossroads in connection. and a willingness to trust that for those of you who may have, soulmates kind of stepping in and pairing with divine counterparts, it's a real opportunity to stand in faith and trust that there's nothing wrong here. That this may be for those of you who have moved out of the lesson period of the purification process and you've started to move into a waiting period on your twin. As this union window opens, this is the choice point. Are you going to continue to wait, or are you going to allow love to anchor where love is already flowing, to blossom where it's already growing? This is that moment in time. These are not easy concepts, these things are asking us to really understand that love is limitless and it's timeless and it's eternal, and that there's enough for everyone to go around, and to really trust the process of life, because the universe is bombarding Earth with some union energy for divine counterparts. But are you going to be so holed up in attachment? That's the shadow side of Taurus. And the shadow side of Scorpio in many ways is control. Are you going to be so holed up in attachment and control patterns that you're dictating that this love can only land in one way? That's the question. If there's somebody else on the scene right now, are you going to tell the universe that's trying to answer your prayer for love, are you going to say, no, it can only go this way, sending that back? Don't give me this. I didn't ask for that. Well, you did. It just doesn't look the way you thought it would look. So at the moment, based on what's presenting, are you going to punish love for showing up in the way that it's showing up when it was your prayer all along? That's the question for some of you. I know, big stuff, right? Big question. And this question only ramps up as we get into, in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer months. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere of the world, the midwinter months, it ramps up as soon as we get into that first week of July, because that's when we have Uranus conjunct the North Node here in Taurus. And this is where we do get kind of like a final timeline jump. Right before this, we have Uranus conjunct Mars, and this would bring and initiate a soulmate masculine energy into divine masculine frequencies. And Uranus, the original divine counterpart to Gaia, the first divine counterpart ever, Uranus speaking with the North Node in this way is going to further open up a bridge to divine counterpartships starting to have more life here on Earth, more fertility, more abundance, more growth. And for some, especially at that time, because we will have Juno speaking in harmony to Uranus and the North Node via sextile, which means harmony, yes, union energy, if you're willing to do some work for it. And the work for it is the stuff we've been talking about all along. And I get into a lot of this inside the Lightworker energy update for this lunation. We've got Saturn here squaring the nodes. Saturn talks about boundaries. It talks about drawing a line in the sand. Saturn talks about discipline and choices and trusting divine timing and order. That's going to be a necessary step. And for many, it's going to come through the divine feminine energy fields. Regardless of what body you've got going on, your divine feminine energy is going to be the one that's starting to draw some definitive lines around, okay, I got it. This path leads to death. That path leads to life. And based on that, I am ready to step into the path of life, or I need more time to deal with my shadow. Whatever it's going to be for you, like I said, we live in a benevolent universe. You get to choose how you want to work with your lessons. There is no right way, there's just your way, and you can trust that. Okay. So, for those of you in complex dynamics in your counterpartship connections, my strong recommendation would be to book a reading with me. If you're not sure how this is playing out and which way is up inside of your connections, for this type of energy, I actually really normally I think a half hour will kind of do it if you've only got one question. But for this kind of energy, it really does look like an hour to unpack it all and to fully hear your story is going to be more fulfilling than a half hour. But if a half hour is what makes sense to you right now, then by all means, book it. I'm over at kmoonastro.com. And for those of you who are not in overly complicated connections, but are really trying to leverage, well, how do I harness this energy for other formats of union? Union with soul group, union with source, union with my mission. If these are the kinds of questions you're reckoning with as we've come from the beginning of this union window, Venus conjunct Pluto in retrograde, November, December, January, February this year. If you're more in that particular timeline with that particular focus, we can have a look at how this all aligns with your purpose and what you're here for as this union window opens, because it peaks in January of next year. And then the energy begins, it crests and then it falls as we move through the remainder of next year. So it's ideal to really be in alignment with what the planetary lessons are asking you to do instead of just being pushed and pulled by the waves at this time. But yeah, there's a huge interconnectedness between the counterparts and some major compassion energy opening up, love energy, forgiveness energy opening up as this union window carries forward. And this is really giving each counterpart an opportunity to surrender even more deeply to love in whichever way it wants to manifest in your world at this time. Surrender more deeply to union energy in whatever way it wants to manifest. Once again, I deeply thank you guys for your patience. I know some of you kind of have been moving into what, as the union window opened, some separation energy with your counterpart. And in my, the algorithm presented to me in my feed earlier this week, there's a video that just came out by, I think his name is New World All Star, where he talks about separation sickness. And I was like, wow, yes, I have experienced that. My clients have experienced that. I know my counterpart has experienced that, even though you didn't know what it was. I'm going to link that below this video because with this energy, the pull of the union window being so strong, but the choices in the third dimension to be so far apart, if separation is what's occurring between you and your counterpart, that can lead to separation sickness in divine counterpartship connections because the union energy is here. And simultaneously, if in a third dimensional way, it's really breaking your ego attachments to union down or to love down to move through it in separation sickness, the physiological symptoms of that can be quite loud at this time. So I will link that particular video below here. And New World All Star, if you're listening, I just want to thank you for putting that video and that content out. It's deeply validating, I know, for a lot of people. And I sincerely appreciate that piece of content. All right, you guys, if you want a reading, you know where to find me. I'm at kmoonastro.com, and I look forward to working with you. Take great care. And if you want deeper insights, definitely have a look at the Lightworker energy update for fuller context on this energy as opposed to just twin flame context, because your world is bigger than just this connection. It's supposed to be, it's meant to be, it's designed that way. So definitely have a listen to the Lightworker energy update. All right, beloveds, take great care. Give the video a like and subscribe, and bye for now.